everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet the Americana throw blanket. It's a super easy pattern that has these fun little triangles done with 2 double crochet granny squares and then some solid portions. It's basically a 6-row repeat over and over. Once you figure out the repeat, which I'm going to show you of course, it's a super easy pattern. Now I have chosen this sort of Americana type striping yarn, but of course you can do this in any colors that you want to. I think it would be absolutely beautiful and like an off-white or maybe a powder blue, or even made in stripes. It's up to you. It's also a good pattern if you want to use up some of your leftover yarns as well, because the pattern itself is not real tricky and real busy, and so it lends great with any of your striping or acrylic yarns that are striping or variegated type yarns. Now, if you work the pattern according to what I have written, you're going to get a blanket that's about 34 inches wide and about 60 inches long. But it's super easy to adjust those sizes. And we'll talk about that a little bit farther on in the video. Now, you can find this free crochet pattern on my blog. And as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. Now, the yarn that I have chosen to make my Americana blanket out of is this yarn. It's called I LoveThis yarn. You can purchase this at Hobby Lobby, and the name of it is Brighton Road. And I thought that it was perfect for Americana look type blanket. I wanted something red, white, and blue, but I didn't want it to be those bright colors. I wanted it to have a little bit of a country Americana feel. You'll need 3 of these or 15 ounces of any medium weight number 4 acrylic yarn or wool yarn or whatever you happen to have on hand. Even your wool and acrylic blends or your cotton and acrylic blends will work just fine for this blanket. Just make sure it's a medium number 4 weight yarn that you're using, and you'll need about 15 ounces or 3 of these skeins. We're going to be stitching today with our eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need your scissors, and then you'll just need your needle for weaving in those ends. To make the blanket the size that I have written for the pattern, you're going to need to stitch 102 foundation double crochets. Now, I'm not going to be making the whole blanket again. I'm going to be doing a swatch of 54 foundation double crochets. That way you can see the beginning of the blanket, the center, and I'll explain how to do the repeats and then the other edge. Before we do get started with our foundation double crochets, let's talk just a little bit about sizing the blanket. The multiples, if you want to make the blanket wider, is 24 stitches plus 6. So you'll stitch in multiples of 24 and then add 6 at the end of that first row. 3 stitches, whether they're foundation double crochet or just double crochet, equal about an inch. And then each row equals about an inch as well. And we're going to be doing 6-row repeats. When you're going to add more length on, you're going to need to do those 6 rows because of it being a 6-row repeat. All right? Now, if you're making the blanket according to what I have written, you're going to need to make or stitch 102 foundation double crochets. To make the foundation double crochets, we're going to begin with a slip knot, and we're going to chain 4. Yarn over, go in the 4th chain from the hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and only pull that loop through the first loop. That's your chain. Now we're going to finish our double crochet. Yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over and go through the second 2 loops. When you're making the foundation double crochet, you're making the chain and the double crochet stitch as we go. And I really like doing it this way because it gives it a nice edge and it's a lot easier to count your stitches. Yarn over, go in that chain that we made first and pull up a loop. Yarn over, just go through that first loop. Yarn over, go through the second 2, yarn over and go through the second 2 or the third 2. All right, so we're going to make, if you're doing the pattern according to what I have written, 102 foundation double crochets. Now, just a little tip that I like to do is to grab my stitch markers. Let me finish this stitch. All right, so what I like to do, they're over here, is grab my stitch markers. And then what I'll do is I'll stitch 10 or 20 stitches and then I'll mark it. And then I know how many stitches I've made without having to continually recount them. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do 2 more. There's 9. And 10. Then I'll just take my stitch marker and I'll mark that 10th stitch. And now I don't have to continue to recount that one because I know there's 10 there. And then I'll do that again. And if I'm doing a really long one like the 102, I might do it do the stitch marker about every 20 stitches instead of every 10. All right, so you need to stitch 102 foundation double crochets. I'm making a swatch, and so I'm only going to do 54 foundation double crochets to show you how the pattern and the repeats work. I've completed my row, and again I'm doing 54 stitches because I'm doing a swatch. You'll need to have for row 1 102 double crochets. All right, we're going to chain 3 and turn. And now we're going to begin the pattern for those fun little triangles. Our chain 3 on this row and on every row will count as our first double crochet. We're going to stitch a double crochet in the next 5 stitches. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 1 more because our chain 3 counted as 1 double crochet and then I stitched 5, so that gives us 6 double crochets at the beginning of our row. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches and then double crochet in the next 2. And now we're going to repeat this. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. Chain 2, skip 2, and double crochet in the next 2. And we're going to repeat this until we have 5 chain 2 spaces. One, 2, 3, 4. So we'll do 1 more, chain 2, skip 2, and 2 double crochets. So we chain 2, skip 2, 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches so that we have 2 double crochet stitches. And we repeated that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here's our next 2 double crochets. That's the bottom of that triangle. And now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 4 so that we have 6 stitches. So now we have 5 chain 2 spaces with 2 double crochets, and then we have our 2 here, and then we stitched 4 more so that we have 6. And so what you're going to do is you're going to repeat all of this from your first chain 2 to your 6th double crochet here. You're going to repeat this 3 more times, and that's going to give you 4 of these triangles. If you made your pattern bigger and added more of the 24 multiples, you'll need to add an additional repeat for each multiple that you added. All right, so if you're doing the pattern according to what I have written, you're going to repeat from this chain 2, skip 2, 2 double crochets, and then the 6 double crochets here. You'll repeat this whole section 3 more times. Once you have repeated the 5 chain 2, skip 2, 2 double crochets with the 6, here's our 2, and then the additional 4 makes 6. Once you've repeated that 3 times, it brings you to the end of row 2 with those last 6 double crochets. The 2 from the chain 2, skip 2, and then 1 in the next 2, and then the 4. Okay, so then we're going to chain 3 and turn. All right, now for row 3, again, one thing to keep in mind is the number of double crochets on your first row will always be the stitch count for every row. So you're going to need 102 stitches on every row, whether it's a chain or a double crochet. All right, our chain 3 again counts as our first double crochet. So we're going to double crochet in the next 5 stitches. Now we're going to double crochet 2 double crochets in this chain 2 space. Chain 2, we'll go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 double crochets. And chain 2. And we'll do that again. We'll go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 double crochets and chain 2. Then we'll go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 double crochets and chain 2. Then we'll go to our last one, which is our 5th chain 2 space, and stitch 2 double crochets. All right, we're not going to chain 2, but I want you to look at it and see. We decreased by 1 here by stitching 2 double crochets in that chain 2 space. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 chain 2 spaces. Now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this is our repeat. 2 double crochets in the next chain 2 space, chain 2, and then we'll repeat that across, and then stitch 1 double crochet in those 6 double crochets. And you'll repeat that in your 5 chain 2 spaces, and then stitch 1 double crochet in each of those 6, and we'll repeat that across. So you've repeated across, and now you have 4 chain 2 spaces because we placed 2 double crochets in that first one, and it brings us down to 4. Here's our 2 double crochets in the last one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 double crochets on the end, and we're going to chain 3 and turn. So there's our first 3 rows. Now for row 4, again, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 double crochets. So our chain 3 counted as our first, and then we stitched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 8 there, counting that chain 3. We're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, 1 and 2, chain 2, double crochet 2 times in the next chain 2 space, chain 2. 2 double crochets in the next chain 2 space, 1 and 2, and chain 2, and repeat that. 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, but no chain 2. And so now we only have 1, 2, 3 chain 2 spaces. We're going to stitch a double crochet in each of these double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so now we have 1 less chain 2 space because we only have 3, and then we have the 2 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and we're going to do this repeat across our row just like we did on the previous row, only we have 1 less chain 2 space. So you've repeated across. We only have 3 chain 2 spaces. Here's our end. Here's our last 2 double crochets in that third of the 3 chain 2 spaces, and then we're going to place 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Chain 3 and turn. And so you can see the pattern here. We went from having 5 chain 2 spaces to 4, and then on this row we had 3. All right, let's do row 5. Again, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and so we'll double crochet in the next 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have 10 double crochets because we stitched 9 and our chain 3 counts as our first. Now we're going to place 2 double crochets in this first chain 2 space. 1 and 2. We're going to chain 2. Whoops! 2 double crochets in the next chain 2 space and chain 2. 2 double crochets in that last chain 2 space on this particular section. And you can see now we only have 2 chain 2 spaces, and we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of these double crochets across. And you can see as our granny square style triangle gets more pointed, the stitches in between each row get larger. All right, I'm to my last 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. And that's the repeat moving across. 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2, and then repeat that. 2 double crochets in that last chain 2 space of those 3, and then double crochet across and repeat. So once you've done your repeats across where you have those only 2 chain 2 spaces, here's the end, and we'll just place our double crochets on the end. So we have 2 here in this chain 2 space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Chain 3 and turn. So again, for row 6, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet over to our chain 2 space. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 double crochets plus our chain 3 equals 12 double crochets. Again, we're going to place 2 double crochets in that chain 2 space. We're going to chain 2 and 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space. 1 and 2. So we only have 1 chain 2 space now, and you can see the triangle shape from the granny style stitches. Alright, so now we're going to just double crochet across till we reach this chain 2 space on the next repeat. So there's my chain 2. And then I stitch 2 double crochets in that chain 2, and then 1 double crochet in each stitch across. And so that's your repeat across with only 1 chain 2 space for row 6. So I've completed the repeats across. We have just 1 chain 2 space, 2 double crochets in this chain 2 space, and then 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets on the end. And we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and turn. And this is our last repeat for the triangle. All right, so what we're going to do, our chain 3 again counts as our first double crochet, and 1 double crochet in each double crochet. One double crochet in each of the double crochets till we reach that chain 2 space. Almost there. There we go. One more stitch. We're going to place 2 double crochets in that last chain 2 space. That's the last one of our triangle, and then we stitch 1 double crochet in each double crochet till we reach that next chain 2 space. And this is going to give us a solid row of double crochets. So we place 2 double crochets in the 1 chain 2 space, stitch double crochet in each double crochet across, and then repeat. So I've got my 2 double crochets in my double crochet, and I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in each stitch across. And what you can see is as our triangle got smaller with our granny square section, this became wider in between each of our triangle granny square type sections. It's not really a granny square because it's not square, but it is the granny square style stitch. And I really, really love the way that it turned out on this pattern. Alright, so I'm almost finished here with my last double crochets for row 7. Chain 3, and let's take a look at it. We started with 5, went to 4, went to 3, went to 2, and to 1 with our chain 2 spaces with our 2 double crochets in between, and then our rows in the middle became wider in between our triangle granny square sections. And that's how row 7 should stitch up and look. So now, to complete your blanket, you're going to repeat row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And because we're starting on row 2, this is a 6-row repeat. You're going to repeat that 9 more times, all 6 of these rows, row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and you'll repeat those 9 more times so that you'll have a total of 10 repeats. Or you can repeat it for as many rows as you would like. Just make sure that you do row 2 through row 7 to get your complete triangle granny square look. So I have done my repeats for as many as I would like. And you want to make sure that you end your repeats on that 7th row so that you get a nice solid row of double crochets. When you finish, Just tie off and weave in your end. There is not a trim on this, no edge or anything. Now you can add a trim or an edge if you prefer. I just don't, because this is intended to be just a little bit rustic for the Americana look. And when I was growing up in Oklahoma, we called the Americana look a little bit country and a little bit rock and roll. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great pattern. And remember, you can make this in any colors that you want. You can make it as wide as you want, and you can make it as long as you want. So it's a completely versatile and easy pattern. And I hope that you'll have lots of fun making this Americana throw blanket.